Today for our second meeting. Janet, did you want to do the roll call?
Yes. Rob Doherty,
Yes.
Alice Campbell,
Yes.
Eric Crane. No.
Nope.
Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
Gabe Lopes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Danvers Public Schools is a dynamic community of independent learners dedicated to respect, responsibility, creativity, and the pursuit of academic and personal excellence. The meeting is being broadcasted on Danvers Community Access Television. And is there anyone in the audience who is recording the proceedings other than DCAT? Okay. So we don't have any public comment today because it is virtual. So we can start with items of interest to the superintendent or the school committee. I don't know if anyone has any. No? Okay. All right. So we'll go to the next order of business. So first we will want to welcome Jasmine Ramon. So I know that Dan Bauer had talked a little bit about Spirit at the last meeting. I don't know if you could give us up a little bit more of an update about that and how you're looking for the community support and what it's all about.
Sure. So again, my name is Jasmine Ramon. I'm the Director of Equity and Inclusion. I think I know everyone on the call, but in case there is an audience watching in this role, I've been in it since April 2022. I oversee the town, the schools, and the library, particularly around education, policy and procedure, and incidents of discrimination and bias. So offering support with diversity, equity and inclusion, belonging, access. That alphabet is growing. And then I also serve as town liaison for the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee and the Accessibility Commission. So that's the work that I do. And I'm fortunate to be involved frequently with many of you on the call at all levels in the public school system, particular to the community spirit. So this event is happening Saturday, October 21st. From 8 to, I believe, 3 in the Danvers High School. And this is a partnership with the schools, NAACP, and an outside consultant and my office to identify issues within the community, really focusing on the schools and beginning to come up with solutions. So this is a community-wide effort that will draw from a variety of different stakeholders and stakeholder groups across Danvers. And I love a good acronym, and SPIRIT is actually an acronym for a site, problem, identification, and resolution of issues together. So again, the opportunity is to identify areas of strength and growth. For this opportunity, a loose schedule of what the day would look like is that there are 2 major breakout sessions. They're facilitated conversations. And in the morning, it's typically identifying issues and challenges in the community among different affinity groups. And these could be town employees. This could be sports leadership at the high school. This could be concerned residents affiliated with the schools. It could be a wide variety of things. And then in the afternoon, that discussion is about prioritizing the issues that come up and beginning to identify solutions in more randomized groups. So you actually get to touch base with different people from different backgrounds. And then before we leave for the day, we come up with like a spirit task force made up of volunteers from the room that will then be kind of deployed into the community following this conversation, this like day-long conversation, to hold the community accountable for some of the solutions that they've identified and to keep us coming back to this work that we have to do. So for the day, we would be providing food because again, it's a day commitment to really sit and pull apart Danvers. And then also we're hoping to provide a childcare option and people will be able to sign up for that in advance. And because they would need a recreation would need like a minimum of at least, I believe, like 3 to 5 kids to at least register to offer that for the event. So really what we're looking for is I think the way those of you on the call can support Dan is identifying additional stakeholder groups or people that like parents that parent advisory councils that might exist, students potentially that could would be good assets to this conversation. And then as well as if he calls upon you to participate, then showing up. Are there any, Dan, is there anything I didn't cover or any questions that the committee or anyone has for me that I can answer while I'm here?
No, just to note that the committee's been meeting actually through July, meeting on a regular basis to plan out. So now we're at a point to launch the community. So we have a communication, wanted Jasmine to present here before we launch out to our school community that will be going out this week that discusses more in detail what Spirit is, but being able to tap into our, varied stakeholders to participate in this great event.
Yeah. I would also add recognizing conversations that were happening in the community, prior to even Dan and our arrival here. There was a want for more communication and more transparency. And I think this is the opportunity, again, to have facilitators come in and help us talk about just that. So this is in response to really what community members have been asking for. It's a long time coming.
So Jasmine, people should contact you, I guess, like if they're interested and have additional, are you the pinpoint person for the town?
Yes, so I would say if it's coming from any of you like involved with the public schools, I would go through Dan because he's sorting the stakeholder groups. But if there are community residents that are interested, or if there is someone watching that's from a different entity outside of the public schools that's interested, yes, they can email me directly. I'm JRAMON at danversma.gov. I'm Googleable. My email's also on the town website. You can definitely contact me directly for that. And you should start to see some like public calls. We are doing like a lot of targeted outreach, but recognizing that we don't know the full scope and we want to be open to folks that we don't normally interface with if they want to participate too.
Thank you. Dan?
Jasmine, one point as well. So the event is taking place on the 21st of October, but it's not a standalone event, correct?
Right. So following that, it really is going to depend on what that task force, like what they take with it and where they go from there. But they will probably be having regular touch points with one another and then like working with whatever groups are directly related to the action items that they create.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Jasmine. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm going to slide off, but if any questions do come up, again, you know how to reach me. And we appreciate your support and everything for this. It should be a really great time. And I feel like it's, the community will get out of it what they put into it. So I'm really hoping we put a lot into it.
Thank you. And Dan, I'm sure you'll probably be able to put that too on like your superintendent weekly notes okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, the next agenda item is the subcommittee policy meeting update. So I know that the policy subcommittee met tonight and you had a lot of discussion. So I don't know who from that committee wants to update us.
Through the chair, if you'd like, I did put some slides together
Yeah.
that we shared, or if you'd like us to talk, which way you'd like to go with that.
I think slides would be good. Then people can visually see it too.
Okay. Yeah, it was again, hopefully I can get this working the right way. Desktop, no, sorry. That happened in the last meeting, so can you see this now on the share?
No, sir.
I had it and then it went away.
It went away, right? I apologize. All right. Here we go. Sorry for that delay. Able to see that okay? All right, great. Thank you so much. Yes, it was a great subcommittee. It was our first policy subcommittee of the year. Some great discussions. We discussed 3 policies we would like to make recommendations to the school committee this evening. Principal Adam Federico did a great job in terms of presenting the facilities usage policy. and hopefully I can get this to work. Principal Federico, would you like to go through the presentation quickly with the school committee?
Sure. So I think can you bounce back a couple of slides? I think you're at the end.
Probably. There you
Okay,
go.
there we go. Okay, so we just quickly in terms of background, as we came out of COVID, there was a desire to look at developing a process to rent our school facilities, gyms, auditoriums, classrooms, things of that nature. We saw this as a potential source of revenue as well, which I think is always a good thing to pursue. In talking with DPW about this idea, we really wanted to make sure that we developed a policy and a usage approach that would not result in damage or overuse of the facilities. We used the current town of Danvers field usage procedure, and then a few other towns, Beverly, Melrose, and Lexington, their rental approaches as a basis for developing our own policy. So we did a lot of research and then developed our own draft policy that we could put into place. In terms of who would use the facilities and how would we determine who gets priority, this was a list that we came up with. Obviously, the public school, we're going to get first choice and first access in terms of school events, school activities, followed by our parent teacher activities, which really speaks to the PACs at the elementary and middle school level, potentially booster groups at the high school level, and those kind of partnerships. We wanted to recognize and continue to partner with the town of Danvers in terms of like public hearings, elections, anything that the town often will use our buildings for, and keep that partnership strong. Obviously, any meetings or activities or forums sponsored by the school committee or school personnel, and then Danvers Rec. So those would be sort of the top groups that we would sort of put in priority. After that, we would get into local nonprofits and non-commercial organization activities, civic, educational, and social organizations, as long as a substantial portion of the members are Danvers residents. And then lastly, under the authority of the superintendent as appointed by the school committee, that's them when we would open up to outside usage. So we felt like it was important to have a very clear priority list that would govern who gets access to the buildings. This will not actually end up in the policy. The policy subcommittee agreed that we want to keep the fee structure to the purview of the superintendent and the business office, but we did talk about and present a range of fees. Obviously, the field house being the largest venue would get the highest fee at $300 per hour, and we would range through auditoriums, smaller gyms, down to classrooms, which would bring in $50 an hour. We also recognize that there are going to need to be some support personnel, and this will need to be finalized before we do the second and final reading of the policy, and then at our discretion. But it's important to recognize that outside groups especially are going to need to pay, whether it's custodial staff, support staff, audiovisual staff, things of that nature. So we do have a fee schedule that we developed, and we wanted to note that ultimately the fees can be reviewed and adjusted at the discretion of the school committee through the superintendent. So the policy will ultimately put that power into the superintendent's hand to adjust fees accordingly. The last theme that we talked about was sort of who's going to sort of oversee this, and we discussed that it was important that a member of the school department be the primary point person for the initial intake of requests to interface with the different schools around availability. And we also recognize that we think there's further need for discussion with the town and with the rec department about fields and about usage in general, and making sure that the town, the rec department, and the schools are on the same page in terms of accessing facilities, and that there's recognition that the school department via the school committee has the ultimate authority over its buildings and how they're used. But we also want to emphasize that there will be continued partnership and collaboration with the town and the recreation department. So that's the hopefully 2-minute summary of what the policy subcommittee discussed, and in that the full policy has been submitted as well. And again, I do anticipate some adjustments based on our policy subcommittee meeting from tonight.
And through the chair, we would like to recommend this for a first reading if possible.
Thank you. So I just need a motion, and then a second before we can discuss. So I just need a motion for a first reading and the second.
So
Motion.
moved.
No, someone's gonna make the motion.
Gabe's got it. Gabe, go for it.
I make a motion for a first reading of the updated school facility use policy.
Second.
Thank you. Second, all right. So is there any discussion? Who wants to, okay. Questions, comments?
I guess the only question that I would have is there any sort of rules that I think it's great that we're going down this road, but is there any sort of rules or anything if there's a certain number of people that we need to have a police detail or anything like that we need to also put in the policy, or is that kind of at the discretion?
So I think that the policy, I believe, does have references to, fire codes. Police details would be arranged through the police department. But we would probably, in terms of decision-making around that, we would have to, I think that would have to be done on a case-by-case basis. So we could add a line that says, potential renters may need to hire a police detail at the discretion of, again, we can decide it's probably going to say the superintendent or designee, and then we'll figure out who that person is. But I think that's a good point. We could add clarification around that.
Great. Thank you.
Go. You can go.
I was just going to
Gabe.
say, from a commenting perspective, I think this is really exciting. Being that I'm around so many facilities and in towns that are so close to us, and even other school properties that are within Danvers that are just bursting at the seams with facilities rentals and classroom rentals and group meetings and everything from pickleball to volleyball to basketball. I think it's a great opportunity for our schools to really take advantage of the buildings, bring in some revenue, and hopefully use those dollars towards something that will offset some other costs within the schools. I think the one thing we did not talk about, and I don't know if that's an official structure or something we can kind of add in, is what's the priority for the use of these funds, or also if some of these funds will be used to create a stipend for an office person within this the school department to kind of oversee and organize. So I think we've made that firstly. The other part is how can we use this money in the most beneficial way that comes back to the schools and the students, or take care of maintenance.
Yeah, no, I think I love this idea because I think that the school is supposed to be the heart of the town. So I love that we're able to use these facilities. I agree, Gabe. I think we do have to think about maybe not specifically where it's going to go, but like obviously some of the money will need to go to like any upkeep of the facility. I definitely don't want to make someone have more work to do in the office without being compensated in some way. So I'm sure that like whoever that person is, that's going to be like the facilities operation, whatever you want to call them, I think we do need to compensate them. Dan, could you just go back to the eligibility slide? Because I just had one question about that. Thank you. So Adam, if I'm and I could be totally wrong. So is number 8, is that like the only time that we can start charging? Because the other stuff is all like community based, or like, how does that work?
Yeah, so the income producing groups would fall under number 8.
Okay.
Everything else is this is meant just to sort of, when we think about priority, we want to make sure that we don't shut out groups that would benefit from using the buildings. Certainly, if we want to have a sophomore dance in the atrium, we want to make sure that our kids get that priority first before, an outside dance recital or something like that. So I think this was just meant to sort of prioritize, like, because it is a school, we wanted to put sort of school functions, school priorities at the top, and then again, if there was sort of a conflict. I mean, I think in general, the key is whoever runs this is going to interface with all the schools in terms of their availability. And we already do this with usage, so that process is in place. It's just now adding the point person that's going to take in those outside groups and sort of do the, here are the dates that are available, things like that, and be the point person.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want people to think like, okay, well, we have this event, we can't, it's like, no, the school comes first, the community comes first.
Yeah, and I do think, having been here for a while, and like the rec department has been really good about this. We know that sometimes with school events, they come up, something might come up quickly that wasn't on the schedule. And I know when we work with the schools in the town or the rec department, we've always been able to flexibly move stuff around. Obviously, there's a few immovable things like an election, where that is what's going to happen. But I think smaller events, we've been able to make adjustments and work with our partners on the town side, and I would anticipate that continuing.
Thank you. Alice, do you have anything?
No, Adam did a really thorough job when we went through this in the subcommittee. We were talking a bit also about Danvers Rec, how they're currently using our facilities and how this would be separate from what they do and how they use it. And I just think just getting more students and community members into our different schools in our district will only serve our town for the better.
So if there's no other discussion, all those in favor of this as a first reading for the policy, for policy for rentals, renting the facility, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, Janet, do you have to do a roll call for that or no?
Let's do it just to make sure.
Okay,
Robin Doherty,
yes.
Alice Campbell,
Yes.
Eric Crane, no. Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
Gabe Lopes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. And I did forget, I did forget to mention Eric is unable to make it today. He does apologize. If you know him, he never misses a meeting. So this is very unlikely for him, but he has some personal things. So with that said, we go to the wellness policy that I believe was also discussed tonight.
Yes, we discussed the wellness policy, and we presented it. So we kind of wanted to go back. We know that it was presented to the subcommittee last spring, and then through the transition, it was on pause until there was a change with the leadership. So we thought it was important to really just go back to what is a wellness committee and what is their function. So at the end of the day, it's really a hold on. I think I'm on the wrong slide again. I apologize. No, I'm good. Okay. The wellness committee is designed, and it's by statute that this occurs, and it's comprised of members of the school community, such as the school administration, the building administration, could be food service director. Emily Cook did serve on the last year and chaired it. As well as our wellness teachers and other community members that have an interest in promoting health and wellness in our schools. And it encompasses many different things in terms of health and wellness. It's not only just nutrition, but it's physical activity, social, emotional as well. Wellness committees typically meet 4 times a year, and they typically pinpoint an item of interest within the community and bring forth a recommendation to the school committee, whether it be policy or practice. And last year, the wellness policy focused in on nutrition. And one of the areas they focused in on was meeting the regulations regarding our food service programs. So what is listed here are the changes that are in the wellness policy that was presented to the subcommittee last year. So at the beginning, it just states that, our commitment is to modeling healthy eating habits, lifestyles, fair and equitable place for all students, regardless of socioeconomic status, disability, religious, cultural, food practices, which is a statement that are common in wellness policies. The piece that's in italics really is just to focus in on the understanding that food brought into the school from outside sources except from home pack lunches, must meet the nutritional guidelines that we follow. Our food service program is set by the USDA, school lunch program and school breakfast program. And that is really under the direction of the food service director and the building principals to monitor the guidelines. So the big piece of the policy is that in this state's school year 2023-24, this hasn't been adopted yet, but that was the writing from last year, is that food-related fundraisers will not be allowed during the school day, not until the school day is ended. Non-food related fundraisers are allowed during or after the school day, so that hasn't changed. I think the big point is that food fundraisers cannot compete with the school lunch program. That's the big piece of it. And certainly the other part too that's important to note is that food brought in from the outside, must meet the guidelines that I mentioned, except for if people bring in their own food for lunch. So we had a really, I thought, a great conversation with their subcommittee. I think I'm hoping a better understanding of the policy and the intention. We invited Richard Kelleher, who serves as our interim food service director, to talk more along the lines of the guidelines and how it works, and understanding the balance and making sure that we meet the nutritional guidelines, but understanding the school community as a whole in terms of how can you balance the needs of fundraising. And I had a lot of experience with him in Marblehead. Out of transparency, he was the food service director. He's filling in right now for Emily, who's on maternity leave. We had Mr. Rob Leshin, who's a parent at Thorpe, but also works for DESE in terms of the food nutrition program. And he brought his expertise just to describe, the changes and what can be done and what cannot. And I think he was very clear in terms of the understanding and provided some helpful information in terms of, do fundraisers need to meet competitive food and beverage standards? And the answer is yes. So we talked about the A list, but the A list can be comprised of items that you might not think would fit under that, such as ice creams and other treats that meet the guidelines that can be sold or distributed in schools. That was very important. And we also had Principal Brian Riley, the Thorpe School, who discussed how he has worked with his PAC in order to restructure how they're able to utilize a system to reinforce the positive behaviors and such that he's bringing to a school. He worked with the PAC so they still are able to do fundraising, but not compete during the school lunchtime. And it was really impressive, his presentation. And I know he's here tonight if you want to ask him any questions. He did a great job, as well as Richard and Mr. Leshin. So I thought the conversation was very positive. We also mentioned that October 3rd, we will have a meeting with the PAC, a central PAC meeting, to talk more in detail. Because certainly with this process moving forward, we want to make sure that everybody understands the rationale, but more importantly, like, how can we move forward, and really the appreciation for what PACs do for our schools and the importance of working together to support our schools, but also meet the guidelines and meet the policy as well. So we, again, had a great conversation on that. And I think it brought a lot of clarity to, what the policy is about and also what the wellness committees do. So I would make a recommendation to bring forth the wellness policy for a first read.
Okay, so I need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to have a first reading of the policy, of the wellness policy.
Second.
Okay, so is there discussion?
Well, Gabe and I were part of the earlier conversation prior to this time together. And I think it comes down to just a lot of state and federal regulations that, we don't have a lot of flexibility with. And, we've brought up the idea of, still in allowing students to have those fun activities during the day, like they might have felt through slush, or ways for PACs to continue to fundraise. So I think the most important thing is, as Dan alluded to, is the PAC coming together in the various schools and figuring out a way to make up those funds. I know personally for both Smith School and Holton Richmond, they were really good fundraising opportunities for both schools that were able to be used for cultural enrichment programs. So it's a big hit for, I know, schools that depend on that fundraising that's coming from either ice cream or slush or whatever other food related fundraisers that they have done. But I think the point is just to try to find a collaborative way to find a new solution around it. We did talk a bit about our current lunches, and we're assured that they all do meet very specific requirements for wellness and health. I know that was brought up in a few conversations we've had with community members. How can we serve, beef nachos, but not provide ice cream or slush? We've been assured that we only serve very, healthy foods to our students. Dan had actually a really good idea about perhaps addressing that in an upcoming school committee meeting, just to kind of reinforce the school menu and how it is healthy for our students. But, we did talk through a few of the things that did come up from the community members.
So just a clarification, so I know one issue is we cannot obviously fundraise during school lunch and it has to meet the USDA guidelines. When you do meet with the PAC, is the plan, are we proposing like completely like no food fundraising at all during the day, or are we trying to come up with like maybe more of like consistency with that and maybe what that looks like?
They did provide us, as Dan mentioned this, there's a thing called the A list, and there is a list of approved items on that list. And there was like ice cream and sherbet and like frozen fruit treats. So there are other opportunities besides what is being used currently. I don't know if at Thorpe, if Principal Riley wants to share a little bit more about what he's been able to do with his PAC.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were able to shift our program outside of the school lunch hours. But I think it's important to note, working with our PAC, the treats that we do serve are approved by the A list, and so it meets those requirements, and so the school fundraising portion of it is acceptable. So we've transitioned it to be more of a community-wide event to ensure everyone has options to it, and also have more of an opt-in form where parents can choose that they can opt in, make sure that there's an allergy-friendly option, as well as a non-ice cream or pop type treat for those who choose a more healthy option than ice cream. But working with the PAC and kind of scaling it back from a weekly lunchtime event at Thorpe to a twice a month event outside of the school lunch hours, and that's focused on more community building. And our Tiger 5 has been something that we started in early July around, and came to a program. And there's been a lot of positive feedback from our first PAC meeting with around 30 families in attendance around that shift and the focus more on inclusivity and supporting cultural enrichment rather than purely selling ice cream.
Yeah, no, I think this makes sense. I think just whenever we are, it's a first reading, but whatever we do decide, I think is really important that it's not like, well, Thorpe gets to have this, but I'm just like throwing like Riverside can't do any of this, so like we do have to have, I think, some consistency among all the schools. Because I know that got brought up in the past too.
Through the chair, can I add one thing?
Yeah.
And I want to also, in Gabe made a very good point. Mr. Lopes made a really good point in terms of the equity piece, because that is something that's really important in terms of students. And Principal Riley was able to talk about how the PAC is working on that as well to ensure that that is happening. So I don't know if you'd like to comment on that, either Mr. Lopes or Principal Riley.
Mr. Lopes, you want to? Or?
Yeah, no, I'm there. I just thought, your point was great, and to kind of suss it down, it's just really about ensuring that every student is involved. but regardless of income. And I think, I mean, we really didn't go into specifics of how to address it, but I think that effort alone, and I think you're having some additional conversations around that, are just really important, that we could still do a fundraiser, but still involve every student regardless of need. And I think more details are going to come from future meetings. It's what I heard Mr. Riley, if not mistaken.
Correct.
Yeah, I see you nodding.
I just would like to add thank you to Alice and to Gabe for their insight, and certainly to our guests that came onto the call. It was really very helpful to have that collaboration, and that's the anticipation of, meeting with the PAC again on October 3rd. And Principal Riley volunteered to come aboard to talk about the work they're doing, and certainly it'll be a work in progress. And I know, if this is approved to move forward, then obviously we have a school committee on the 16th to talk further in detail and hope to have more specifics in place. But I'm very encouraged by the collaboration and really the appreciation of our PACs, but also the understanding of the guidelines that we're working with as well in our food service program.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Okay, Janet, can you do a roll call for the first reading of the wellness policy?
Yes. Robin Doherty,
Yes.
Alice Campbell,
Yes.
Eric Crane, Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
Gabe Lowe.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that carries as the first reading. So we look forward to the update after the PAC, and then we can go from there when the second reading will be. So the next item agenda is civil rights. What a busy policy meeting today.
Yeah, yes, it was. It was a great policy meeting. Certainly we got to the end, and this item did not take as much time. Working with our counsel, Attorney Michael Joyce, he's had an opportunity to review our bullying harassment policies, civil rights policies, Title IX, and all of our procedures as he's reviewing our handbooks. He's working with trainings and PD for our employees as well as our coaches. And the big piece is, as I brought to the first school committee meeting in August, was a recommendation for policy AC and ACE, which is around our Title IX and civil rights. Attorney Joyce also has reviewed the Attorney General resolution that we have that's in place until the end of the school year. And once he reviewed that and worked with our school side counsel, Attorney DePietro, it's within his recommendation is that we hold on both those policies, do not make a change at this time until the end of the year, because the resolution that was put into place reflects the current AC and ACE that we have on our school committee handbook. So his recommendation is to stay put with that, which makes total sense. The one policy that I'd like to recommend for a first reading tonight is policy ACAB, which is the sexual harassment policy. The rationale behind the recommendation for removal through Attorney Joyce is, as he's reviewed our policies, this one is redundant. Policy AC addresses the conduct of sexual harassment. So this policy really not only is not needed for redundancy, it doesn't match the current law, and it's quite frankly, it's outdated. It came into place in 1995. There have been changes in the law since then regarding sexual harassment. So his recommendation is it's not needed, and the removal is a recommendation that I'd like to make for this evening. A recommendation for first reading, I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, we had to say, so we need a motion and a second for the first reading.
Motion for the first reading of the updated civil rights update, I guess.
A second.
Second.
Thank you. So is there any discussion? Yeah, I think just when this gets to the second reading, the final approval, I just thinking about how we can make sure that that gets out to like the staff members, so they know, all right, this is, these are my rights, this is the policy. So, which I'm not worried about getting it out. I just, so that they know the update. So, all right. So, I need, if Janet could do a roll call for all those in favor for the first reading of the removal of policy ACAB of sexual harassment policy.
Robin Doherty,
Yes.
Alice Campbell,
Yes.
Eric Crane, no, Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
and Gabe Lopes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Doherty. The important piece that you brought is very important, is that the policy is not changing at all in terms of our current policy regarding civil rights and sexual harassment under Title IX. That's the same. That's AC and ACE. That stays the same. The ACAB is not needed, and that will be duly noted for sure. The additional work, and these are just updates for the committee, is that Title IX grievance procedures. This just allows our building administrators, as well as our Title IX coordinators, to understand the procedure, and it's really about streamlining. So my initial presentation back in August was, to revamp the policy AC, to take out the procedures there of grievance for Title IX. But the Attorney Joyce recommended just adding this into our handbooks so that it's procedure, not policy. So there's no school committee vote needed. And that's sensible. I'll work with our admin team to ensure that those are included in the handbook. We already have this. It's in school committee. We just want it so it's easily found and easily accessible. And the last piece of the recommendation is that a comprehensive review of our policies and procedures. His recommendation is to table until the spring and summertime, just to honor our commitments to the AGO resolution agreement. That's his recommendation. So those are the further updates in civil rights. That's it.
Thank you.
The next item is the school safety committee meeting, which took place yesterday, highlighting our safety presentation, which will take place this Thursday at Holton Richmond, 7 o'clock. We're looking forward to an opportunity to present not only our policies and procedures regarding safety, but also the chief and his team will be there to discuss not only communication, but just the overall theory in terms of why we are moving forward. And we've had these procedures in place for many, many years. It's an opportunity to have dialogue and present to the community. There will be an opportunity at the end for questions and answers. Also, October is going to be School Safety Month, where we'll feature our safety drills. Actually, the high school had one this morning, very successful. A lot of feedback in terms of how it went, and actually was outstanding. And the other drills will take place in October for the schools, elementary and the middle. Bus evacuation drill, more fire prevention. We've already had our fire drills and the positive report, and then bullying prevention. So we'll highlight that in October. An item that came up yesterday, which we'll be communicating out to the community on my update on Friday, is just to ensure that the protocols for visitors entering the building and exiting the building, we have a sign-in on top of the Raptor system. So it's not to replace the Raptor, which is extremely important, but just the piece of information that we have, as well as a staff sign out, because in the case of an emergency, we do not want to waste time. We want to account for everybody that's in the building so that we can protect those and not put anybody in harm's way, first responders or staff looking for somebody who may or may not be in the building. We want to be absolutely sure on that. The high school, middle school already have the sign out and sign in procedures, and we're going to now bring that back. It really happened pre-COVID. We're bringing it back from COVID. In addition, we'll add lanyards to the visitors so they can put in their Raptor pass, and that will help. Communication was discussed in terms of walkies for a district-wide that interfaces with the police and fire. There's more development on that and more coming through. They've been meeting, James Sullivan, our director of technology, has been meeting with the police and fire in terms of finding a frequency to get this to go, and we're making progress. But also the walkies that we use in the schools, we're looking to add more and update the walkies that we have. There was discussion of an application that can notify staff in the event of an emergency. We know Essex Tech has one, and we're looking to put together a small group to discuss and visit Essex Tech to review this if it's something we would like to investigate. And then finally, the schools, fire and police provided updates. And I think it was a very positive meeting, and a lot came of that. So that's the school safety committee meeting from yesterday.
Good recap. That's good.
The last item in the update, and I'm going to turn this over to Assistant Superintendent Mary Wormers, just to provide like where we're at. I know the results of MCAS came out and we're in the process of analyzing. We're going to present in October, but I just wanted to update the committee in terms of like with the analysis, what we've been doing and how the presentation will look, and a few highlights. So Ms. Wormers, are you available?
Yes, I am. Thank you. So yeah, we wanted to update you on what we've been doing with the our analyses of the MCAS data, so that when we got back to school, that's when the Department of Ed allowed districts to see the full results of the MCAS. And so when that happened, we as curriculum directors and building administrators started looking at that data. And when we do that, we look at it in many different ways. We look at it as an aggregate, kind of like how the grade level did, how they did against the state, and then how they do against how they've grown over the years, and looked at their growth. We also look at disaggregate data. That means it breaks down how the achievement happened in the different subgroups of kids. So we get to know like how our subgroups are doing in the MCAS. And then finally, there's curriculum measures. So you get to look at the standard or the item analyses and kind of look at how the kids are doing as far as a curriculum wise in accessing the standards in Massachusetts. So we did that. I met with curriculum directors to really go over a lot of what was happening at their levels. And we also shared it looked at it together as a principal group, and talked about the building levels. And so we started to pull out some themes. So next month, you'll see we're going to come forward with a presentation, but here's some highlights of what we found when we were analyzing that data. So we were finding, areas of strength in the MCAS were ELA at the middle school level, 6, 7, and 8 grade all did improve their scores over their their previous grades performance, and they also did well against the state. At the elementary level, our math was strong against the state averages this school year. So we're hoping that, that's partly, I think, due to that ST math program that we really used. I mean, the schools had set such lofty goals and had kids so energized and participating in that program. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Grade 10, the cohort has shown growth from 8th to 10th grade in both math and ELA. And the good news at the Holton Richmond Middle School is that the chronic absenteeism rate at the high school exceeded targets, not just for all the kids, but in each of the subgroups too. So it showed that, with all the different populations of our subgroups, we were doing well in getting them to improve their attendance at school. So that's a big part of, student achievement, and a sign of, the stronger culture in the school. So areas for improvement that we found were, in writing in general, as we looked over the ELA, when we dug deep into the standards and into the item analyses, we see that still it can be challenging. Answering a constructive response or writing an essay can be challenging for our students. And it's not just Danvers, it's overall. The state also reports that's where they're seeing weaknesses as well. Math at Holton Richmond continues to be not as strong as we want it. Over the past 2 years, we've transitioned to a new math program. So we have made, based on our previous year's MCAS, we've changed our program and shifted to a new one that is more rigorous than our previous program. So I think that, we've had a little bit of that implementation dip as we're all trying to get used to a more rigorous program. And we're hoping that, not hoping, but we're knowing as the next few years come that we'll have stronger results. We have a great coach from the company, from Carnegie Math, that's our new program, who comes in to help coach the teachers. And that's been so valuable to have that in the moment kind of PD for them. And then in 2023, math at grade 10 was lower than we would like it to be. But again, there was show growth from where they were in 8th grade up through 10. And so another area for concern for us is that we're seeing a little bit, that students were opting out of MCAS, which hurt us in sometimes in the number of kids not meeting expectations, because you get, if you opt out, you get a 0 on the, it's reported as a 0 for our school on the MCAS. So that was been challenging. And accountability, part of the accountability rating you get, which is another set of data that we've gotten in September and that we've looked at, is your assessment participation rate is a big factor in that. And if we have a lot of students opting out, our participation rate slips below 95%. And that gets us not in need of assistance. So that's been troubling for us. So that was something that came up at one school, and we'll talk more about that when we get into our presentation in October. So I just want to say that a lot of this analysis we're doing also is at the elementary is starting to begin now with our local data. So Julie and her team of principals are all starting to look at their the beginning of the year reading assessment data, and they are working to put their MTSS groups together based on that data. So it's not just the MCAS comes in and that's like that is a big focus, but we also do the same type of analyses when we get down into our local data and to help us kind of keep moving that instruction along for our day-to-day work.
Okay, thank you, Mary. I don't want to get too bogged down with this because I know you're still analyzing it and teachers are just finding, they were embargoed till recently. So thank you for the update. I know we're going to have more information in the, coming meetings. Yep, Dan.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Chair. If that's done, then I did have one quick update slide, just one more thing that I know is requested.
Can I ask just for one thing on that MCAS update, when the data does get presented to us in October, I just really want to stress to everyone that we be as critical as possible. I know we are very much here to celebrate our district, and I think I'm more guilty of it as most, that I always look for the positive. But I think we're at that moment where we really have to be critical. And what are the lessons? What are the changes that you would recommend as administrators, educators, principals, curriculum directors, whatever hat you're going to wear? I want to hear what you want. Honestly, I want to hear what kind of changes need to be made to make some positive changes to some of these MCAS data points.
Yeah. And to your point, Alice, we, based on even some of our local data that we were analyzing last spring, we knew what some of those changes had to be. And the MCAS has just confirmed that for us. So the MTSS block at the elementary level. So we've made some of those large, those bigger changes, but there's still more to come based on what we analyze here.
Great. Thank you.
Superintendent Bauer, did you have something to add?
Is he muted?
Still muted. And I know this was requested from the last meeting, just an update on emergency assistance families. And Mary has been leading the charge. And again, proud of Mary for her work and our team, as well as the across the town and support. So Mary.
Yes, so our emergency assistance program, we've been seeing students coming in since August, and we've been registering kids for school, and we continue to do so. And we did we actually registered some new families again today. So I thank Pam Ames and registration person in central office for coming along and helping out with that, because is that it? So at this point, as of today, we have 58 students in the Danvers Public Schools that are part of the emergency assistant program. We have 39 of those students are at the elementary level, and 19 of them are at the secondary level. So yeah, at the elementary level right now, based on, existing transportation and infrastructure, we have 3 schools where those students are attending. And those would be Great Oak, Highlands, and Smith. And that is those 3 schools would have traditionally seen, some of the students from that area. That's regionally, those 3 schools would support students in that program.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
The coffee, we had our first one this morning at Holton Richmond. It was, I thought it was well attended for the first one. Chief Level was there. We talked about school safety. That was our focus. And the plan is next month, we'll have one at Riverside, working to coordinate with our PACs to host them. The next one will take place, I believe, at 5:15 or 5:30 to provide an opportunity for those who can't make the morning time to come in the afternoon and evening. And again, we already talked about the Central PAC meeting October 3rd, which I'm excited about that too. So that's it for the updates. Thank you.
And Dan, thank you for that, because I don't know if that has ever happened before, the central PAC meeting, but just bringing the PAC leaders together, I think is a great idea and great initiative. So thank you for doing that.
Okay, so the next item is unfinished business, which is our, so the district improvement plan, the school improvement plan, so this is the second reading. So first, I do need a motion and a second for the second reading of this.
I will make a motion for a second reading of the district improvement plans, K through 12 school improvement plans for a second reading.
Second.
Okay, thank you. So is there any discussion? I know we got to ask a lot of questions last time. I don't know if there's additional questions lingering, or if there's something, Superintendent Bauer, I don't know if there's something that we need to share that changed. I don't think anything changed.
Nothing changed. I just want to, again, express my appreciation to our leadership team who's here tonight in case there are any questions and the work they put into it. And I think the other piece too that's important to note is there are increased metrics, although the goals stayed relatively the same. You know, we're going to a 2.0, so we're looking forward to seeing the achievement that will come with the hard work of our administrative and our teaching staff at all the schools. I just want to say thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for our school committee's support.
I never thought I knew the name of a penguin named Gigi, Julie, until, the last 2 years. But if there are no questions or discussion, then we can move to adopt the district improvement plan and school improvement plans K through 12. So Janet, could you do a roll call, please?
Yes. Robin Doherty,
Yes.
Alice Campbell,
Yes.
Eric Crane, Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
Gabe Lopes.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you. So thank you everyone for your work on that. Principals, curriculum leaders, teachers. I know that it was a lot of work. We're excited to see what happens. We're excited to talk about it at the end of the year too, and reflect on what went well and see the successes of it. So thank you. Dan, do you want to excuse them or do you want them to stay? I don't know.
If it's okay through the chair, yes. Thank you again. It's been a long day for our administrative team and our directors. So thank you again for all of your hard work and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, so we are at the new business. So we need an appointment of a delegate and alternate to the MASC annual business meeting down at the Cape. Dan, the dates are the 8th, the 7th, the 9th.
7th, 8th, 9th, I believe those
Okay.
days, yes.
That goes into Veterans Day. So we need I don't think I can appoint myself, but
Can I appoint Robin, Dr. Doherty?
Can I nominate Robin Doherty?
sure.
I second that nomination.
Okay. I don't think we have to vote for that, do we? I don't think so. Is there an alternate if someone needed to go down for the day on Saturday or something?
Eric.
Okay, well, tell him that he's the alternate then. Okay.
Well done. That's well done.
Okay.
No, and also as I don't know, Gabe or Josh, if you're able to be an alternate on that weekend, I don't think I will be able to, but
We can also talk about in October too, or like,
Okay.
I can send out the dates and, people can think about it too.
Yeah, we'll get a confirmation of the dates too.
Yeah. Yeah.
The dates would be held, that's the weekend of the 10th, or
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sorry,
7th and
November.
8th is a Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah. So Dan,
8th, 9th, and ends on the 10th, yes.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
so you vote on the 10th, right?
What month are we talking about?
November,
November.
sorry.
Thank you.
It used to be virtual during COVID and then now everything is back to in person, like the vote and everything like that, so. But we'll talk before about the resolutions and everything like
Okay.
that, because remember, we've gone over them and the person votes based on what the school committee has decided. So
Okay.
we can look back at the dates too for that specifically.
Okay.
Right, so the next new business is the approval of homeschool requests. So, I need a motion and a second to approve the homeschool requests.
Were there
Motion
any?
to approve school requests.
Sorry, Gabe. I just didn't see any in the links, I guess. Are they in the drive?
Doesn't appear to be.
Which is fine.
Yeah, there might not be any homeschool requests.
I wanted to ask, yeah.
Okay. All right, consent agenda.
I have to approve the minutes real
Thank
quick.
you. Yep.
The secretary moves to approve and release the minutes from the September 11th regular meeting.
Right.
Second.
Okay, so all those in favor, please say, oh, sorry, Janet, roll call.
Robin Doherty,
Yes.
Alice Campbell,
Yes.
Eric Crane, Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
Gabe Lopes.
Yes.
Okay. Now we have the consent agenda. So we need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, Janet, can you do a roll call, please?
Robin Doherty,
Yes.
Alice Campbell,
Yes.
Eric Crane, Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
Gabe Lopes.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't know if there's any communication updates to share. I don't know if Mr. Bauer, you have any updates?
No, I'll just put them, the school safety items will go in my update, as well as the community spirit update will go in there as well on Friday.
Okay, thank you. I know Eric's not here. I don't have any updates from legislation. I don't know if there's anything specifically from like a school district. Okay. So subcommittees, curriculum assessment and equity is meeting the end of October. So that is the next meeting for that. I know we talked about the safety meeting, policy meeting we've covered. Deep, I honestly did not go. I wasn't able to go. If you have, okay.
Happy to provide an update, Chair.
Yeah.
Yep, we, Mary and myself, we attended the DEEP meeting earlier this week. It was an organizational meeting, setting up, support and allowing them to get back into the schools to talk about the teacher grant program, which is outstanding, but also look for other ways that they can support special projects within the schools. So that was part of the discussion. In terms of looking for fundraisers, they're looking for opportunities to bring in a variety of fundraisers, and that was talked about. But that was really the crux of the meeting. Mary, is there anything that I left out?
No, you got it all.
Thank you. Danvers Cares.
So Danvers Cares, we had our organizational meeting on Monday. And it was a great opportunity to meet the group and just reestablish, and again, looking for areas within the community that can bring positive change. And certainly it's starting and setting up the year. And I think one of the big pieces that came out of it is, connecting all the programming with those that are involved on the school side, primarily our social workers, and looking for ways we can connect that aspect of the work, whether it's dealing with substance use and awareness, whether it's mental health, or whether it's anything in between. And that was a big piece of the discussion. So we're looking forward to our next meeting, which I think is in 2 weeks.
Gosh, CPAC, I don't think so. Or is there?
I did make some contact with CPAC, and they
Okay.
are going to be just in touch over the next coming weeks to see if they can get on our agenda coming up. So
Yeah.
yep, that's the only update, is that there'll be an update coming, I guess.
Yeah, no, we're open though. So whenever they want, they can just send you an email and you can forward it, or
Yep.
they can send it to myself or Mr. Power. Either way, it's
You
fine.
got it. Sounds
Thank
good.
you. And then Danvers Human Rights and Inclusion.
Yes, I attended my first meeting last week. Really productive. Some events that are coming up are Rainbow Day. That's today, September 26th at the library. All right, that's already passed, but that was another inclusive day there. September 23rd at Danvers High School from 11 to 2 is a Hispanic celebratory event. So there'll be food and other celebratory type things. I do want to call out a big shout out back to the support of our schools, to the new families that have come into the town and are entering the district. They couldn't be just, they were just really grateful for Mary Warner's and her team. So that was really special. In regards to some additional help for our the new additions to our community, I spoke to Dan Bauer about this. So I'm really trying to see if we can find some volunteers to organize donations. They're really bursting with donations, but someone has to sort it and organize it. And I don't know if that means teacher volunteers or maybe some student groups who can go down. I mean, the town has really rallied to collect items, and there's no resources to go in and break that all up. So if there's something that we can organize, that would be really, really great.
I love that, Kate. I love that
Yeah.
idea for the middle schoolers or the high schoolers.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if there's something that we can talk to the principals about, Dan, but that's a really fantastic idea.
And are there any items that they're really looking for?
There is a list that the
Oh, Mary.
town. Yeah, well, Mary may know, but I know that's all being collected at town hall.
Yeah.
But they're literally like bursting. There's been such a deluge or a volume of donations,
Yeah.
but Mary may know some things that are still
No,
missing.
I just think like winter clothes, because I think like people like
Oh,
they
yeah.
get summer stuff, but like they're cold. Like the last couple of days have been very chilly in the morning, so coats and like sweatshirts and sweaters, that kind of
Gift cards are also really welcome. They're living in hotel rooms and they can only cook with a microwave. So giving them the discretion of maybe getting what they need could
Like
be really helpful.
restaurant gift cards, you mean? Like to eat, or like?
Yeah, or just like general cash gift cards.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You know what I mean? But
So
yeah,
if they want, they should reach out to the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee to help organize. Do you think? You think that's the best point of contact?
no, there's a woman, Mary. I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. She's organizing
Agnes?
all the donations. Yeah.
Oh, well, Agnes or from Center Board, but then I think Jen at the town hall is
Yeah.
working.
I apologize. I couldn't remember her name at town hall, but she's been really helpful as well.
Okay.
And then the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee did directly ask the school committee, what is the equity subcommittee, who is in it, and if there can be like more transparency around what the mission of it is and what it involves. That was really it. That's something that myself, Eric Crane, can go back and report on. But that was the big thing. Like, what does equity mean in this subcommittee? You don't have to answer that now. If there's something to send or whatever, I can report on it at the next meeting next month.
I mean, I think, and Mary, you can obviously jump at any time. Like, I think, we combine the equity piece into the curriculum, because when we had separate committee meetings, we were really talking about a lot of the same thing. So if we have a strong curriculum and assessment, that all ties in together with equity, because then every kid is getting what they need. And really, if you have good teaching, in strong relationships, that's what equity is all about. I don't know if you want to, and I know a lot of the work too that the teachers did this past year was all related to equity. I don't, Mary, you can jump in too.
And Robin, we have a team, a district-wide team it's for the Culturally Responsive Leadership Academy that we work with the Department of Ed on. It's they call it an MTSS committee, and that really the work of over the last year has put a framework together for equity where we look at different pillars. Like we look at like student engagement, we look at like school, like how school operations and how that is equitable to students. We look at our work with families, and then we look at district policies, and like, so we have a framework for that. We kind of set that up, and as we move forward into our third year of work with them, we're going to start to look at areas under each one of them that we can kind of attack to make sure that we are being equitable in all areas of our school district. And Dan is going to come on and join the group, and as we move forward, and hopefully we'll see parts of that in the strategic plan that that Dan begins to develop on the next
Awesome.
year.
But Gabe, honestly, and I know we haven't been good about this, like now that they're all virtual, like anyone can join at any time. So like the next curriculum assessment equity one is the end of October at 5:15. So if there's someone there or anyone there who wants to join, and I know in the past we haven't been as good about like advertising that when any of the subcommittee meetings are, but I think now they're pretty laid out, and I think we welcome, the community, because otherwise it's just us.
Yeah, and I think seeing equity, it's like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
It sounds like pretty specific. It's curriculum based, and it's literally mentioned in almost every school committee meeting. So, I can go back and share that.
Okay, thank you. I did forget to mention that some exciting news is that we did hear from Clint Allen, and we did sign the lease with, my goodness, I'm forgetting, is it Sonic? The solar company.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we signed that. I think I'm saying the company wrong because I forget where I wrote it down. But so I guess we'll then hear what the next steps, like the lease is signed. So I'm sure that he'll be contacting Superintendent Bauer to say, okay, like, and they'll be coming up with a plan, I'm sure, of what that looks like in the installation. Because I know we wanted to make sure too that the kids were able to learn from it, but also that it didn't disrupt the school day. So that's exciting. Our next meeting is October 16th at the Holton Richmond Media Center. So that is where we will be. Everyone will be on the same level. We'll be in a horseshoe. I think it'll be good it'll be better viewing for everyone. So that's where the next meeting will be. So if there's not anything else, I need a motion to adjourn in a second, and then I need a roll call from Janet.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Robin Doherty,
Yes.
Alice Campbell,
Yes.
Eric Crane, Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
and Gabe Lopes.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. Good night, Danvers. We'll see you next month. Bye.